Taz has left WrestleMania. I couldn't believe that. He quit WWE. I guess his contract rather finished up right before WrestleMania, and he didn't renew, and he didn't even try to extend and stay through WrestleMania. He honored his original contract and commitment, and despite Vince McMahon wanting him to stay on at least for WrestleMania, he said thanks but no thanks, and he's out of there. Were you aware that he was leaving? I mean, the real life Taz doesn't seem like he would leave WWE unless he felt like he had a place to come here. Did you know he was coming? Is that why some of the Don West stuff had already started to happen? You're trying to make room for Taz, or talk to me about Taz.
Not to my knowledge, no. Not saying that Dick's no. To my knowledge, no. Why did he leave? Do you know? When I was reading the notes, I'm like, I'm going to ask Conrad because I guess the real story had to have come out.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that the real story ever did come out. I think a lot of people, I mean, JR and I just talked about this not long ago. He was shocked that Taz didn't hang around through WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It feels like most everybody hangs out through WrestleMania. He did not. So that WrestleMania had a 3-man team. Instead of there being one team here and one team there, it was a 3-man team. And
interesting.
Taz was nowhere to be found. But it feels like my guy Taz would not have just quit his job without having another job lined up. But what do I know? This is from the Torch. TNA on-air authority figure Jim Cornette says TNA needs to start a developmental program or work with an existing developmental program to sustain the company's ability to draw an audience in the long term. TNA needs to bring in, on a constant basis, new, fresh talent. That's how you create stars. I think they will need to do that ongoing. They probably will sooner or later. They need to find new stars. What do you think of him saying TNA needed a developmental league? Did you guys ever consider trying to find that in the budget, or did you have a different approach?
Well, the financials of starting a developmental can fluctuate enormously.
Crazy, yes.
They really can't. But at this stage, independent wrestling had begun to get healthy. Obviously, Ring of Honor's out there, and they had developed and brought a lot of guys in. And then Japan's promotions, guys were getting work out there. We weren't in a position financially to just start writing checks. It's the amount of money through the years at NXT, massive. But there's always a different lens to view that through. You look at, Major League Baseball is another set of circumstances that they're going through right now. It's presented a great opportunity for Springfield Lucky Horseshoes and the Prospect League and Woodbat leagues like that. But Major League Baseball is whittling down their developmental system. They see more upside in the NIL and kids being developed in colleges and not in AAA, AA, single A, high single, low single, rookie, and all that. So just kind of evolving with the times. That's why I think in a lot of ways, me being a wrestling junkie, for me, has always kind of kept me in tune with different guys in different places, in different promotions all over the world. And I think because the cream, truly, I believe this, I've been taught this, but I've seen it firsthand. The cream always rises to the top. If you're good at this and you're going to get work and you're going to get buzz, no matter what level it is, you're going to keep going up and up and up. Again, we didn't have the ability, but we kept our ear to the pavement and tried to hear about new things. Because, when I read that quote from Jim Cornette, I could plug in Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, so many different people, because guys that book Dutch Mantel, Dusty, I can remember me and Dusty talking about the Asylum shows when he was driving up every week, and I would pick his brain on a Wednesday afternoon when I have just, I don't say a lull in the spot. He would sit out in the arena and hold court and entertain guys. And then other days he would be into what he's doing that night and whatever. But I can remember him, he'd call me Double J, just say, all right, what you got coming up? that generation, we talked a lot before we got going on the territory days, the way those promoters really kept going, we've talked about the Jack Welch, is the turnover, the massive turnover in talent continually. And I think there's a real upside. And when I look at AEW, the massive talent roster, I think there is a brilliance in it because it can keep people super, super, super fresh and a constant turnover. And, that there is so much upside. And historically speaking, that's just how our business works. I mean, to Cornette's quote, it's easy to say TNA ought to have a developmental. It's a whole nother thing to finance that thing, but there is truth in that.
Let's talk a little bit about something that happens on TV here. Vince Russo is going to make a rare appearance on TNA programming. It's on the latest edition of the internet show Spin Cycle. It's sort of a laid back show, and he's greeted with a classic Fire Russo chant in the background, and his cell phone goes off. And there's a roundtable discussion, which Russo is a part of. He's trying to stir up Mike Tenay regarding the Don West storyline. And he's calling Abyss one of the most fugly individuals he'd ever seen. Talk to me about this. It feels like something you guys would have discussed. Once upon a time, it was, no, Russo can't be on TV. And now, well, it's okay if it's an internet show. Is that the thinking? Or
There you go. I mean, I'm not going to say they didn't run it by me. I mean, I don't know that. I don't recall that. But when I think of 2009 Spin Cycle, I think of Jeremy Borash, and Jeremy super, he's super creative and just kind of creating that. In those days, the internet and television content were light years apart. They weren't even, nowadays, to me, depends on how you view it. And boy, I got all kind of ideas about that, but it is one and the same. There is no difference. People consume content through their phone, whether it's TBS, TNT, YouTube. It is, that's the reality. And these days, oh, it's just the internet, what you just said. That was kind of the mindset.
let's talk a little bit about another quote from Dave Meltzer here. He's talking about the April 16th Impact and that it did a 1.28 rating. That's 1.7 million viewers. More importantly, though, it's the highest rated show in males 18 to 49 on cable during the entire 2 hours. That's got to be all that matters for Spike and TNA, right? I mean, yes, okay, less people watched, but how do you beat number one in the demo? If you're number one, where else is there to go?
And I keep saying, and look, there's so many, gosh, can you imagine if in today's environment, if these numbers would have come out way back when? I can hear whether it's Keller or Meltzer or Mike Johnson, whatever journalists, they would not write an article, I don't believe, without highlighting that Spike was not a top 10 network. They were 18, 19, 23, 24. And so your cum average, that's a big deal. So a highest in the demo for a top 10 network is, okay. But our value at the time in April of 2009 to Spike TV was way up there, pal. It was fantastic. And as I was reading through our notes, Conrad, and I think they started in February or maybe February, March or whatever, kind of running through April. I think back a year later after this, I can't imagine even 6 months really. Kevin K's like, okay, now where'd our executive producer go? Like, what happened? Just insane. Because we were clicking from a network perspective. Of course, they could care less about buy rates. They could care less about live attendance. They could care less about revenues. That at this point, they wanted us to deliver a 2-hour show that got ratings, and that's what we were doing.